Man, are we professional using the Riverside platform. We got a countdown to the podcast and everything. So hopefully I didn't miss my cue. If there are numbers telling me when to start talking, hopefully I'm not already talking when the recording begins. At any rate, you'd expect nothing less, so maybe I should look to just continue to screw it up. My name is Brett Ballantini. I'm lucky enough to be hosting a podcast called Sox Pop on the Farm. It's our podcast devoted to the minor leagues. This year we decided to scale it back from the past. I mean, it depends on really the perspective you use. First half of last year, we were going every week. Second half of last year, we were going none, I think. So somewhere in between that is what we're doing this year, which is roughly monthly. It's a busy time, crazy time with the rest of our minors writers, and by no means a consolation. This time it's going to be just a one-on-one, intense throwback to the Winston-Salem only days with Super Joseph Resis. Joe, of course, writer of our weekly, monthly Players of the Week, Wednesday night minor league writer. When he decides the White Sox need to win a game, he decides to recap a White Sox game. So still a jack of all trades for us at Southside Sox, as he has been, I don't know, for many, many years now. Joe, thanks for taking the time. All the other slackers like catching up on their sleep or whatever, but you're with me again for this month look back at June. So thanks for taking the time to do this with me.
Yes, my pleasure.
All right. Can't call him Cali Joe anymore. You notice that surfer blonde that he had going there for a while. It's all washed out now. He's back to just dark, serious Chicago man. So welcome back, Joe. Closer, sort of home, closer to most of the games that are being played, for what that's worth. East Coast, Carolina, Birmingham. Joe, pause with me for a second as I just run down where the system's at, because it's always the exciting part to realize, wow, the numbers aren't as great as we want them to be, but there are some highlights. Starting with Charlotte. What in the world? Charlotte is a 500 team? All of a sudden, it just has never been. But at the moment, and they were rained out here as we record on Sunday, so we know this hasn't changed, 43 and 43. This is a 500 AAA team. It's like this is Christmas in July for sure. In the second half, which counts, it's broken into halves. No chance to make the playoffs if you take the full season. But in the second half, Charlotte's 7-4, just a game and a half out of the division lead. This is not impossible for this team to put something together. Well, it is, but we'll pretend right now, here at the beginning of July, that it's not impossible that the Charlotte Knights could be a playoff team. Wow. I might have to quit if that happens, because you got to go out on top if Charlotte actually puts that together. Overall, for the season, they are 12th of the 20 teams in the International League. They actually have crawled their way and scratched to a +1 run differential. Extraordinary things happening under the great Sergio Santos in Charlotte. Birmingham, 5-7 in the second half, did not back their way out of the playoffs in the first half. So their postseason streak, which is one, is in jeopardy because they got to get it together. 43 and 38 overall, so it's going to be a good season, looking to be a good season no matter what. But overall, they're just 4th of 8 teams in the Southern League. Not so great. +35 run differential. Winston-Salem, though we would like to just skip them, we cannot. They are 4-11 in the second half of the season. That's worst of 12 teams in the Sally, I believe. 29 and 51 for the full season. Yes, in case you're wondering, that's also worst in the league. -85 run differential. For a while there, the run differential wasn't that bad, so it's like, what's going on here? How are they finding ways to lose games? Well, we know now. Second worst run differential in the league. -85. They're just not a good team, and they're probably not going to be a good team. Hopefully there will be some matriculations from Kannapolis, or who knows, maybe even the ACL, but that doesn't promise anything. They've dug quite a hole. Sorry, Dash. We'll look forward. We'll turn the calendar to 2026. Probably won't be talking about a lot of Winston-Salem Dash here with Joe this evening. Kannapolis, the other playoff team from 2024, they are in trouble. They have been on a 3-week, month-long, whatever, 3-week swoon. 5-10 in the second half, not great. and they really flamed out in the first half. I'm not really sure if they ever were muscling their way to playoff contention, but they're 37-44 overall. They're last in their division, 10 of 12 overall among the teams in their league, and -8 run differential. Not great. It's taken a turn for Kannapolis. We had 1 year. We'll always have 2024 Kannapolis. The ACL, sure, we'll talk about them. We haven't yet because they weren't playing. Now they're playing 26 and 21. I guess they were playing last podcast, but we just ran out of time. So many people to talk, so many things to talk about. They are in first place. We have a first place team in the White Sox system. 3 divisions, of course, in the ACL, 5 teams each. Hey, it still counts. They are 4th of 15 teams in the ACL. What is going on? It's not just Noah Syndergaard, like raw milk power. It can't just be that. First place, that's playoff contention, man. If the season ended now and they said we don't want to play any more games at 100 degrees, they'd be in the playoffs. Plus 30 run differential in just 47 games. Not bad. I don't know what's going on here. DSL, we won't talk about it all, but they're 10 of 14, somehow a -31 run differential. It's the DSL. We don't have any photos. We don't have any coverage. At this point, we made a decision sort of not really to cover them at all. When it comes to prospects list and stuff like that, of course we incorporate DSL players. But in terms of the day-to-day grind, games at 11 o'clock, they're done early, but it seems so very far away. We pass on the DSL. But we'll mention them. If they were 24-0, we would definitely be talking a lot about the Dominican Summer League. As it is, we won't. So, Joe, we've gone over a few players prior to beginning this recording, and I think rather than talk teams, because after all, I just took 5 minutes of your life away by yammering on about 6 White Sox affiliate teams, so let's not talk so much about teams. Let's drill it down to players. And let's start with a success story. It's always good to start with a success story, although I'd say it's more than half of these players we're going to talk about are success stories. So I want to talk up the system. And that's Colson Montgomery. I'm the first to admit I thought this is a crazy move to call up a guy who had a better second half than first, if you want to call his half-point break being demoted and torn down, having his swing torn down in Arizona. With developmental time, but nothing to go so crazy about that you're like, this guy's got to be in the major leagues. He had 2 devastating games back-to-back at the end of June. Great, but not necessarily something that would merit the major leagues. So I was saying, pump the brakes. What are you doing, White Sox? And 3 games in against the Colorado Rockies, caveats abound, but I am definitely willing to admit I was very wrong about that. What's your take on the Colson call-up? You don't have to cop to being as wrong and as dumb as I am, but with the caution of, it's 3 games against Colorado, and we'll see how you liking the move so far.
Well, I was largely quiet about the decision to call him up. Regardless, I could, that allows me the chance to just, have 20/20 hindsight. I will say, though, I did not like the move, though. I will admit I was very much skeptical. I was like, this kind of seems odd. Like, sure, he looked very good in AAA in June, I guess, but, I mean, I thought it was a little bit strange. Especially given, a lot of times the White Sox have been too far in the other direction where they're protecting their players a little bit too much before calling them up and perhaps delaying their promotion more than they should. So I was very surprised because, I personally would not have called him up as early as they did. In terms of his performance in Colorado, that was a really strong performance, though. It was 3 really good games. I don't really think much of it, given that it is an extremely small sample size against the worst team in the majors. And a key part of that is, Colorado really doesn't have pitching of any kind, hardly. So I am still very much pumping the brakes, but it was still cool to see, him, reaching base on in his first plate appearance on that catcher's interference, and then having his first career hit be a triple. You don't see that very often. And really, he was, displaying, all the tools at the plate that you would want to see from him. And it's 3 games, but they went about as well as they could have gone for him. So for the moment, I will be happy, despite having a bit of an incorrect prediction on how his first series would go.
Yeah. I believe, as our colleague Brian O'Neill said, this is as close to debuting in a minor league game in the major leagues as you possibly can, and that can only benefit. You've got an incredible hitting atmosphere. You've got a pitching staff that is certainly sub-majors. You're playing with teammates who haven't had the greatest season, so you're not going to immediately feel like you don't belong. It's no murderer's row with the White Sox. So, and from that standpoint, if for some reason, like Chris Getz felt he had to call him up in 2025, this would have been the series to do it. I mean, if that really was the parameter, then absolutely the smartest move possible. But that wasn't the parameter. It's sort of strange that you got a guy who we're not even sure if he has a solidified defensive position to be getting called up really on the merit of, player of the week, which was still on the merit of essentially 2 games. One thing I will say, because it doesn't have to do necessarily with the hitting atmosphere, it does play into the fact that Colorado probably struggles to hit its way out of a paper bag often, although I should not be throwing those stones as a fan of the Chicago White Sox. But defensively, 0 miscues. 1 astounding play, a very basketball or football-esque diving catch play into the outfield. But everything else, routine or not, strong arm, covered the field well. Again, there's going to be challenging plays. You can go through defensive slumps as well. It's not like I'm waiting on that for Colson, but something that has maybe a little more control to it. I came away very impressed with how he handled himself defensively. He absolutely, when things are going well, it's easy for this to be the case, but it absolutely looked like he felt like he belonged, and he was playing like he belonged.
Oh, yes. The defense was, of course, a major question mark for him throughout his time in the minor leagues. And personally, I did not like, the displacement of Mydroth from shortstop. I felt like Mydroth was certainly carrying his weight in terms of his performance defensively at that very important position. And with bringing Montgomery there, I was very, very skeptical, and I'm sure there will still be some gaps that show. But in terms of that very first game, making that diving catch, that was very impressive. I certainly didn't expect it to be on a highlight reel for a defensive effort at shortstop, given kind of some of the negative scouting reports on his defensive abilities at that position. And it was very good to see that, especially with in the past, the White Sox have had some positive scouting reports on infielders playing defense and their abilities there, and they just haven't materialized there. So I mean, maybe they're overdue for the inverse of that happening. It's another one of those things where, just like with the bat, he had a good series defensively. It's only 3 games. I'm not going to overreact too much to it, but it was great to see. And Montgomery certainly had a fantastic series. Even the throw home to get the force out today was, that was a nice play.
They've screwed that up this year in so many ways. It was good to just see it get executed.
Yes, indeed.
He sort of threw it off balance, somewhat off balance. That didn't affect, the accuracy. The tag was made, the catch was made. It's like, what's happening to this team? Clearly, they feel superior to the Colorado Rockies because now they're playing like they're, the Yankees or the Dodgers. So
yes, indeed. But
good for you,
I
White
think
Sox.
just maybe if they can have more games against the Rockies, that would be nice. But yeah, they won't have that victory. But regardless, it's good to take advantage of those games when you get them. And I can never complain about winning 2 out of 3 on the road, even if it is against Colorado.
White Sox 54 and 108. Yes, we're talking about the White Sox on the Minors podcast. But listen, pump the brakes. There's no more games against Colorado. There are no more weak sisters to play. We got our 3 games against them. It's done. So okay, that's 159 against real teams, 3 against, I guess we can say it because we're putting them in the rearview mirror, teams that are lesser than a team that still is, I don't know what the latest count was, 88th worst start in baseball history. This is not a team that's out of the woods by any measure. This is still a terrible team, tied for 4th worst White Sox start ever. And that's 125 years. That's not nothing. Anyway, that's the White Sox. What am I talking about that for, Joe? Joe, preaching caution also. That's why we have an odd couple pairing here, because I'll just get excited and wet myself and break into tears over some performance. And Joe will say, hey, man, cool it. It's the Rockies. But one more thing about Colson, because we just want to linger on the good stuff before we have to get to stuff that might be a little trickier, because that's coming right up. We don't know him well enough. I mean, we saw a little bit of him in spring training, and he's still feeling his way there, and then he gets hurt right away. He's not playing very well. But just to see his and whatever little snippets we've gotten from Charlotte, those weren't necessarily happy times. Yeah, maybe a couple post-game interviews and conversations where he could be like, yeah, man, I rock. But, I mean, that hasn't exactly not been a struggle for him. So just nice to see a guy who looks like he belongs, seems like he has a right. He's just he's still a young kid from Indiana, which, I know is very close to home for someone formerly residing in the Indianapolis field office. But, I mean, guy who seems very comfortable, seems like he could absolutely be a face of this team. And again, let's just heap more pressure, Brett, on Colson Montgomery's shoulders. But it looked right, felt right. And again, he's playing the Blue Jays coming up. So strap it down, Colson. But hey, 3 games in, about the best you could hope for.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's certainly a positive storyline. Looking ahead into this podcast, I really wasn't sure if we'd have a positive outlook on Montgomery, and there would be a lot of discussion about why did they call him up so early. But due to the strong performance, I'm happy to not have that discussion.
Yeah. So to immediately, as by means or by way of transition, let's get into some stuff that's a little stickier before our break, Joe. And that is something we've even alluded to on other podcasts, because it's big news and it's come up with our discussions, because it's our number 1 prospect, our pitching hopes for the future. And it's Noah Schultz, promoted from Birmingham to Charlotte a couple weeks ago, or at least a couple starts ago. Had put together a pretty decent season with the Barons, had finally been allowed to pitch 5 innings, and he did that in the majority of his starts. Had some real lockdown games. Overall, pitched well, still a little wild. That seemed to be an issue even up to the call-up. And then called up to Charlotte, and since then it hasn't been disaster. It hasn't been anything to listen. I'm going to be cool like Joe Resis here, and I'm not going to go screaming into the hills over this, but it has not been 2 good starts. Things that were persistent with his game that weren't positive, namely his command or control, have persisted in an extremely difficult pitching atmosphere in the International League, and particularly in the home ballpark at Charlotte, where he's going to get some starts. This seemed from a distance, hey, let's just talk about guys getting called up and what our reactions are, Joe. We'll just do a reaction video like we're watching a video game. Just seemed sort of like, why? If there was ever a case for maybe getting a guy when the appropriate time comes, as the White Sox are fond of doing, even with position players, of jumping them right from Double-A to the majors, it seemed like it would have been the case with Noah Schultz. And, I mean, that ship has sailed. He's in Charlotte now. And now any move from here is wrought with peril, short of him just dominating Triple-A and saying, okay, I'm knocking on the door. Because you demote him back to Birmingham, that's a setback. If he doesn't move up at some point, probably this year to the White Sox, that's like, oh gosh, he's stalled. Now that's an overreaction, but it's not weird to think the trajectory is you're not going to spend a ton of time in Charlotte, which is like 4A airplane, hangar by just waiting around, to get a deal somewhere. Who wants to ever be right about this stuff? Like if Colson had a terrible series in Colorado, it wouldn't be like, oh, let's cackle and make fun of the White Sox. I mean, we probably would, but it wouldn't make us feel good. And with this thing, and no, I mean, again, I hope his start, say coming up Thursday or whenever it's going to be next, is going to be dynamite and everything gets righted. But there's a lot of moving parts here, and it seems like the White Sox have complicated a situation in a way they didn't need to. And of course, Noah's got to perform, but this is not a great development.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's certainly been a rough start for Schultz in AAA. In terms of his AA performance, yeah, I had a similar reaction to his promotion to AAA as I had with Montgomery, which was like, oh, they're promoting him. Okay, it's a little bit early, but I mean, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. But it's maybe a tad premature. I mean, yeah, he was all right in Birmingham, which is a very pitcher-friendly place. I mean, he had 3.34 ERA with some 3.42 BABIP. Admittedly, I don't know much about the batted ball information in AA in terms of if he was actually unlucky to have a BABIP that high against him. One thing I was surprised though was I was surprised by the high walk rates in AA. That was one thing that I definitely thought needed work, and so far it's been pretty much the same story, even slightly worse with the Knights so far. That's one thing that 6 walks per 9 innings, like that just simply isn't going to fly no matter what. I mean, regardless of how good your stuff is, it's very, very difficult to pitch around that sort of trouble. It's been 3 bad starts with the Knights for the most part. It's very early, but yeah, I personally wouldn't call it like I wouldn't be overly upset if he was to have just sort of average-ish numbers in AAA and just stay there for the rest of the year. I don't necessarily think he has to dominate and make it to Chicago for a September call-up. Mainly I'm looking at his walk rate, his ability to miss bats, which he's doing pretty well at. It's been largely a lot of walks, a lot of strikeouts, and so far has struggled to keep the ball in the park at the AAA level. In terms of those 3 true outcomes, he's doing well in one of them, So overall, it's been definitely a tough start with the Knights for him. But I mean, he's still very young. Normally this is the type of player, and we've talked about before on this podcast, of the tall left-handed starting pitcher. Like, they generally have done very well with those. And usually by this point I would have expected, a bit more control, on the mound, and we haven't quite seen it yet. But I mean, he's doesn't turn 22 until August. I mean, he's very young, and certainly younger than the average AAA player. He's got time to work it out, which is a very good thing to have. But overall, I did think that that his 2025 season would be going a little bit better than it ultimately has up to this point.
Yeah. The danger signs, the numbers, the performance. I mean, it's not anything near disastrous. That outcome is possible. It's not likely. And And, to you and me, it's like, okay, yeah, you pitched the whole year even at Double-A. Okay, big deal. Much less not make it to the majors this year. But, of course, there is that pressure. You are a number one prospect, and you should never be touched. He should have never had a futures game experience like he did last year, where he just got, he got lit up and he, sort of got rescued and bailed out of there. And let's hope he does have a better one coming up in the futures game, I believe Saturday before the All-Star game coming up on this Saturday. But, yeah, let's just hope he is able to start turning things around a little bit, just, for his sake. Yeah, he's young, but here's the problem. These things, I don't think many players have the ability, or many coaches can do it for players, to make things disappear. These things aren't tattooed on you. It's just the back of a baseball card. But it also doesn't go away. You can't erase it. You can't say, man, whew. I know maybe sometimes you have a bad enough year you have to, but in reality, it doesn't work that way. And so, let's just hope he's got the fortitude. He seems like a fairly loosey-goosey guy. For a guy who's pretty young, he seems to have a good head on his shoulders. So we are anticipating great things from Noah. We're not second-guessing the White Sox, but it was a bit surprising. And the fact that he even stopped off in Charlotte, it's just interesting. I'm not even saying it's wrong. It's just interesting that the majority of players, well, maybe at this point this year it's been a little weird, but if you take into account last year, almost every player who made it to the major leagues matriculated directly from Birmingham. And then with this guy that you're thinking, we're really bubble wrapping him in a way. I'm not sure you're like, well, let's just throw him into one of the most difficult pitching environments he can and just see what happens. Let's not have our number one prospect just learn to swim by getting thrown into the water. But, so I don't think that's the thinking. But, I'd be curious to know once they're on the other side of it and he's going to his first All-Star game, it'd be interesting to hear the story of why in the world this happened. Before we break, let's talk about sort of the companion lefty to Noah Schultz. They were roommates until Hagen Smith was injured / needed corrections or whatever, ended up being apparently it's easy to catch the bus out of Carolina through Birmingham all the way to Arizona because the White Sox are doing that fairly frequently. He did some developmental time in Arizona at the pitching lab, whatever that means. Hopefully it's not just like an abacus and a couple other things. Hopefully they actually have real equipment there for the White Sox. I wouldn't count on it, but hopefully it is more hopefully than an abacus and a Polaroid camera. And he's back in Birmingham, roommateless, or he doesn't have his tall lefty friend who probably eats all the Fruity Pebbles before he can get to them. And Hagen's been back, and he's had a little bit of trouble as well. Obviously, he's going to be working on stuff, so we can't freak out because he's obviously going to, just like Colson, going to be trying to take what he's learned in Arizona, incorporate it into games, so he avoids injury, avoids fatigue, can get sharper because. What is it about lefties? Those loopy lefties are, they often can be a little bit wild, dangerous, scary, but also wild. And, Hagen's had a little bit of that issue as well. So he is somewhat, so we're going to say Noah's a little stalled at the moment. Hagen certainly is even more so as a guy who you might have even thought as an older pitcher who had pitched at some very high level competition in college just last year, might even be on the faster track to the majors. He seems like he's in a, restart mode in Birmingham as well. What's your take on our other prime lefty who's supposed to anchor the rotation for the rest of the 2020s?
Yeah, it was a mystery what was going on with him for quite some time. I'm glad he's back now. It seemed like he was on that 7-day injured list for weeks on end. But glad he is back. He was on a very nice streak. He had 12 straight scoreless innings up until July 4th. Finally hit a bit of a roadblock against Chattanooga, where he allowed 3 runs in 2 2/3 innings. Overall, things are working well for him. Again, with Schultz, I'm unhappy with the high walk rate from Smith, but he's gotten a ton of strikeouts. So, when you're doing that, you can a lot of times get away with that high of a walk rate. Once he gets beyond Double-A, I doubt he's going to be able to, continue striking out 15 for 9 innings. That's something that's no one really can do sustainably outside of, I don't know, elite closing pitchers might be
Mm-hmm.
able to do that. Um, but I think with Smith, yeah, I'm definitely keeping my eye on that. And he has done a good job of uh, getting a lot of soft contact, which has worked very well in his favor. And that I do think is sustainable. Definitely think he has the stuff to um, generate a lot of weak contact. Maybe at AAA and in the majors, he might not be able to get as many swings and misses, but I do think that kind of stuff will um, result in a lot of soft contact. And ultimately, again, he's turning 22 in August, and so yeah, he's still very much on the younger side. I like the other than having a bit of a setback from the injury. I do like the way that his season overall is coming along. The durability, of course, it is very easy to get nervous about a hard throwing pitcher, who's this young, in terms of are they going to have to miss extended periods of time, especially when we've already had like a mysterious injury from him that's kept him out for about a month and a half. But ultimately, when he has been on the field, I have liked what I have seen from him. So ultimately, yeah, I'd say my outlook on Smith is pretty positive.
Okay, it's pretty positive, but Hagen, have a listen. Joe Resis doubts that you can sustain 15 strikeouts per nine. So gauntlet thrown. Pick it up, buddy. We're going to take a break because, we're talking a lot about the high. Go figure. We're talking a lot about the high minors for a change because not all of the good stories have to be like dug out of A-ball. So that's awesome. We're going to take a break. We're going to stay in Birmingham. Who doesn't want to spend extra time in Birmingham? We're going to stay in Birmingham. I'm going to advise Joe to go get the room, stay overnight. We're going to be in Birmingham for a little bit more chatter, get into a little bit of lower minors, and then, maybe mercifully tap out of the June review podcast. Let's take a break. We'll be back and talk about another Baron, surprise Baron, you might say, in just a minute. Hey, White Sox fans, my name is Brett Ballantini. I'm hosting Sox Pop on the Farm, number 62, with my partner in minors writing and minors podcasting, Joe Resis. Thanks for being with us again. Joe, he is providing his expertise on the podcast. I am providing ill-timed jokes and probably erroneous factual material, which is my role here. Before we get back into the minors, we haven't had a podcast, I don't think. I haven't, since the news, but we got the news that on July 4th in Portugal, White Sox closer, World Series closer, Bobby Jenks had passed away. Of course, it strikes all of us right in the gut. Very, very premature passing. We knew Bobby had a lot of struggles before even learning of his stomach cancer, for goodness sake. And obviously the prognosis, by the time we got the word about why he wouldn't be returning to manage the Windy City Thunderbolts, why he was in Portugal in the first place, wasn't good. And, of course, you can be a realist and say, oh, this is an uphill battle for him, and still hope. And, of course, he wasn't able to make it back to manage. He wasn't able to make it back, get healthy enough so that you could get back for the 2005 World Series festivities that are coming up later on this week with the White Sox. Just a sad story overall. We have 2-3 articles at Southside Sox about it. Joe, I'll ask for your recollections of Bobby, not necessarily in the news because it's terrible, of course, but certainly have specific memories of Bobby Jenks. So what do you think when you think about bad Bobby?
Oh, a lot of positive memories, absolutely. Of course, the obvious ones would be, from the 2005 World Series. Just a dominant performance in Game 1. really slammed the door shut in that game to really set the tone for the rest of the series. Of course, Game 4, the last out I've seen probably hundreds of times at this point, and that is my favorite sports memory of everything, actually. I mean, this is, out of all the teams I root for, that's my only championship.
Yeah.
And that's, something that's going to stick with me forever. And, it's really an important, job that he did there at the end, coming through in the clutch. And setting down those last few hitters, protecting the one-run lead. That was, at the time I was 10 years old, that was way past my bedtime. But yeah, that was, I hardly, even though it was, very much off my schedule, I don't think I slept very much at all that night. But it was, yeah, very good stuff there. And, the other one that I think, often gets overlooked, understandably, compared to the World Series, but that big streak that he had in 2007 of setting down 41 batters in a row at the time, that was, he was in sole possession of the American League record for most batters retired in a row until Mark Burley broke it with his perfect game and perfect 6 innings the next start after the perfect game, just a couple of years later. It really was something special in the middle of a disappointing season in 07. Once that streak hit something around like 25, it started to become like, wow, oh my goodness, this reliever actually has basically just pitched a perfect game across several different outings. Like, this is actually pretty special. And then he just kept going after I started noticing, and the national media started noticing and started pointing out the statistic, like, oh my goodness, it's only going to be a few more outs until he has the record. And normally, in a season like that where they kind of fell out of contention pretty early on, I wouldn't be overly concerned about the individual performance of a relief pitcher, but Jenks absolutely drew my attention during that season, with that streak of his, and I think it was definitely a special time over there, and overall just a very tragic death and a way to go out there, but he will always be an icon, and I have a ton of respect for him.
It's crazy to think that, I mean, and you were digging the stats out and all that, and it's like, oh yeah, 25 in a row, or people are starting to take notes. What was surprising to me in learning about that and realizing, wow, he ended up tying the all-time record. It's like, wait a minute. I understand that a starting pitcher, doing that for too long would be like, wow, that's like back-to-back perfect games. So I get the limitations of this, but talking about in whatever 100 plus years of baseball, that this is like never. To me, I mean, as remarkable as, and I mean, incredible that a reliever's doing it. Having to bristle up, not just having like one hot game or facing a team that's just not itself that day. Burley got to feast on the Rays for a perfect game, but that it was just 41. You got Ed Walsh like throwing like 8,000 complete games in a season, and he wins 40 in a year. Even that would even be the team record. I remember when that was like a record tie. It's like, wow, Jim Barr has that record, and like the record's not even just a little bit more. Even where it stands now at 45 with Burley, I think it was like, wow, okay, that's all. That was something that sort of struck me, but it was really cool that he sort of like just slid into that in a way that's like, holy cow, because that was over like 12 games or so. I mean, that is not easy. Talk about the light air of Colorado, and then you've got an overnight, all the tough travel that modern players face. But I mean, it's not You're not just sitting at home waking up every day and just going out to the sandlot and pitching in the same place off the same mound in the same weather conditions, having the same food to eat. So definitely cap tip. And to tie it into the minors, Joe, I mean, there's something that clicked with Bobby in Birmingham in 2005. It's not to say that he hadn't had any success in the Angels system, and he was obviously battling a number of things, including just learning how to harness his stuff. He had his off-field issues, I think, that probably did put the thumb on some of his numbers in bad ways between the beginning of his career in 2000 and moving forward. But he comes off just enough of a terrible season in 2004 to have been made available and for the White Sox to snag. And he pitches terrifically with Birmingham before he gets that call up. Hey, they were doing it even back then, Joe, 20 years ago. Birmingham straight to Chicago, but 285 ERA. He's not pitching a small, 35 games, 19 saves, 41 innings. He's killing it. I mean, he's not even killing it as well as he ended up doing in the majors that year, but the White Sox unlocked something, and maybe he was just ready, and maybe he sort of sucked up some of the maturity issues as well, and realized, hey man, I am 2 steps away from the majors. And of course, he would never have imagined what those 2 steps in the majors would have taken him to. October baseball, pitching in wintry mist, and being on the mound when a team breaks an 88-year streak to become a forever icon with the team. So did not want to leave Bobby unmentioned, given the fact that we have just lost him, and it comes at a really challenging time, given the fact that, hey, this is 20 years, and at the end of this week, a week after his death, much of the rest of the team is going to be gathering in Chicago to celebrate. But I have to now take you back to Birmingham, not your childhood home when you were pouring through agate type to come up with different configurations and streaks and trends, Joe. But it's good news, sticking back for once. If you have to hang out in Birmingham, it's good news, because Shane Murphy, I mean, now that they've ruined it with Noah, don't send Shane Murphy to Charlotte. I think that's something I even wrote in one of my many minors updates this week. Don't do it, White Sox. Just send him to Chicago. I don't care if he's ready, if he needs Charlotte, or you don't like him or what. I don't know what it is. Just don't send him to Charlotte, because he's on an incredible, he's basically on a season-long hot streak. And frankly, his career with the White Sox has been basically a hot streak. But he is, on a heater like you just do not run into very often. It hasn't shown up in the one-loss record, but we'll get to that later on in this podcast as well, what that really means. But man, he can go out and try to throw a bad game, and I don't think it's going to work. He has to be surprising the heck out of you.
Very much. Oh my goodness. Easy choice for the Barron's Player of the Month for June. It is kind of a mystery to me why he's not in the White Sox top 30 list, but I think he needs to be on there now. It really is a pleasure to see him dominate the way that he has this year. I mean, I certainly did not see this coming from Murphy. I mean, he briefly played in Winston-Salem to open the year, got a promotion in April, and played well enough in a small sample size to earn that promotion, and has just been completely dominant in Double-A. I mean, granted, yes, Birmingham is very pitcher friendly, but I mean, even considering that, I mean, he's just simply not walking batters, not giving up home runs, getting a pretty decent amount of strikeouts. I mean, it's been a very strong performance overall, and granted, I wonder how much of this would he'd be able to do if given another promotion. I wonder if the AAA hitters, for example, would be maybe a bit more adaptive, and because he really hasn't had a major obstacle this year in terms of like, even some of the best pitchers at the major league level, they eventually hit a rut, or hitters adjust, and then it's a bit of a cat and mouse game. The pitcher kind of has to adjust back. Murphy hasn't really been tested like that at all this year, which is a good thing. I'm just, I want him to absolutely just continue dominating. And I'm just kind of curious, kind of how he would perform, because granted, like, as he started the year with the dash, I kind of thought, okay, maybe if things go well, he'll finish the season in Birmingham, but it feels like at this point, like, that would be a disappointment at this stage. Really well done to Murphy. I mean, he's just been very, very consistent overall this season, and yeah, it's really been a pleasure watching all of his progress.
Yeah. You said, Joe, you wonder if AAA hitters might, unlock something or break the spell. So, again, I'll just reiterate, let's just avoid that possibility. Let's not have him have to play in the bandbox of Truist Field, and let's just have him pitch for the White Sox, because there's gonna be openings and opportunities in the second half. The entire pitching staff is not melting down. Formally not melting down, but let's put it this way: there's going to be pitching opportunities. The hitting might be better than the pitching in the second half. That's way too. I'm not making that prediction. I'm saying there's a possibility, only because who's going to pitch. So it's going to be intriguing, and hey, who knows? Shane, just, keep the duffel bag zipped up. Never know, just saying. Be remiss not to touch on the fact that ostensibly the reason we do these podcasts is around the timing of the monthly awards. So to review Joe Resis's and Southside Sox, you can read it on site if you haven't already. If you're watching this podcast, if you're listening to this podcast, you must have already read this article from Joe, right? If not, okay, pause. We're not going anywhere. Me and Joe can just be motionless for about 10 minutes while you read it. Brooks Baldwin, AAA, just ridiculous. I mean, we want to talk about a AAA Hall of Famer and a guy who's in Colorado, but maybe beginning to figure it out. I don't know. We'll see. But back up in the majors, where he should be. Sorry, Jacob Amaya and Vinny Capra, ad infinitum, Josh Rojas, et cetera. Shane Murphy, yeah, no doubter. System-wide and Birmingham Player of the Month. About time we get a Paisan on the Sam Antonacci. Love to see it. The Winston-Salem Dash Player of the Month. Luis Reyes in Kannapolis. I want to say he didn't have the best start, I think, Saturday, but he pitched strong for about 4 innings. He's been good. Albertson Asijan, who I want to say was in Kannapolis. I don't know if this is still sort of like a semi-rehab thing. I want to say he was in Kannapolis most of 2024 when he came over from Boston, I think. So not really sure if this is like a fair award or not, but hey, you just got to look at the numbers and say, all right, if it's going to be Noah Syndergaard, for God's sake, then so be it. But yes, Albertson, congratulations for your ACL award. And someone who I'm being told is not just some sort of composite of a young Latin American player, but an actual, real, living, breathing human outfielder or pitcher? Joe will tell me. Yobal Rodriguez is the DSL Player of the Month for the White Sox for the 10-14 DSL. Again, rumors are they play in the Dominican Republic, usually morning games. We don't really get any news, any reports. It's hard enough to get information out of Arizona. So if we want to say expect to get information out of the Dominican Republic, good luck. Unfortunately, neither Sox Populi nor Southside Sox nor SB Nation nor Vox LLC Incorporated nor the Fans First Sports Network has the budget to send one of us. Probably Joe. He's got some other things going on, like, I don't know, work and wedding planning. He's got stuff going on, but I mean, hey, listen, you throw a stack of cash at him and say, yeah, sure, I'll go down to the Dominican and figure out if Yobal Rodriguez is an actual human pitcher and not just some weird composite or baseball card sketch. Okay, Joe, let's leave Birmingham. I know it bums you out, but let's leave Birmingham and talk about just a couple more guys. We're not going to go any further down into the system this time around than Winston-Salem. A scary place to stop, but we'll stop there. Tanner McDougal had stops and starts and injury. Tommy John, has not. I mean, I guess we're not really leaving Birmingham, are we? But because we just can't leave. Once you enter Alabama, you are not allowed to leave. Joe, pro tip. But Tanner McDougal has been everything the White Sox wanted from him, coming out of his incredible prep career in Las Vegas. 5th round pick, I want to say, very highly touted, and then somewhere in between winning his very first appearance as a professional and roughly 1 week ago, he lost 20 consecutive games. Not at all a reflection on his pitching, although not exactly an endorsement of it either, because last year, if you were talking to me, and you probably were, so let's go to the tape and figure out what we were saying about Tanner McDougal at the time, because it wasn't great. He was very much, it was a little bit of a shoulder shrug. Is this guy going to turn the corner out of A-ball? And I think that was very much in doubt, as much as you want to believe in a pedigree that has you being a 5th round pick out of high school. But he's drafting right behind Shane Murphy in terms of just devastating. They're really the 2 starters in the system at this point, and McDougal's just putting it all together. He's got that losing streak off his back now, so hey, he might have his sights set on the south side, as well, given all the opportunities will be in the second half. But he's turning around in a way that's got to be incredibly heartening, and probably, got cap tip something in the White Sox system on how he's being brought along, because it's not just a matter of snapping a losing streak. He has put together just start after start that's been everything the White Sox could hope for and more this year.
I am completely amazed. I will admit I was pretty bearish on Tanner McDougal entering the season, but wow. Not much else to say about him than he has completely shattered my expectations. I mean, it was. I kind of felt like his fastball. Okay, it was pretty darn good. He was able to throw it really hard and pretty accurately. But in terms of the secondary stuff, I was pretty skeptical about it entering the season, pretty much across the board. But he's just cruising right through it. I'm not quite sure, how he made such big advancements in his game from 2024 until now. But sometimes things just click, and that has certainly been the case for him. And this past week, even in we're a little bit into the month of July now. In addition to his very strong month of June, he also pitched 6 shutout innings to begin the month of July as well. So he's just continuing to build on what he had going in June and even in the earlier parts of the season as well. Just very strong performance overall. He, I guess, has just become a completely different kind of pitcher once he's really been able to develop the slider. Curveball has also been pretty effective this season, and those were pitches that just generally didn't usually work out very well for him last year. And with hitters no longer able to sit on the fastball nearly as much, that's made a huge difference for him. And he's certainly been a huge bright spot this season.
In our Southside Sox Populi, Sports Illustrated, WhiteSox.com, whoever we're affiliated with everybody. History as a top 100 pick. Tanner McDougal started out in his draft year at 21. He got hurt. So you're not going to really penalize a guy too much for being hurt, right? Certainly not a first injury. So 22nd in 2023. He fell to 26th in 2024, while he was just trying to get his feet under him. Tumbled going into this year and this offseason to 63, which is warranted. It speaks to what Joe said about being so bearish, and I mean, you're not the only one. Joe gives me a list of maybe about 30 guys every year. He did not make Joe's list this time around. And in case anyone needs to know, I don't know why you'd keep watching if I keep talking myself down, but in case you know, if you need to know what sort of clown the host of this podcast is in terms of prognostication, he had Tanner McDougal ranked number 99 in the White Sox system. That is, believe it or not, that's lower than anyone else in our ranking system. Few people go all the way to 100. This clown does, so he gets to put his thumb on the rankings more strongly than smart people like Joe Resis. So take that for what it's worth, those rankings. But the point is, a guy had taken a tumble, and these are the great stories where a guy's like, okay, wait, he's sort of fallen off the list. He's fallen off the map. I mean, MLB, the pipeline still had him at 28 because it's like, you got to really yank a guy. Sometimes you really have to yank a guy out of their hands to be like, okay, we're not going to rank him anymore. You got to really sort of earn it. He already had, but MLB sort of had him still lingering. But it's great to see a guy that, even with a sampling of ratings among all our very bright staff of self company excluded, still had him at 63. I mean, there's a lot of promising players in the system, and he was not showing that promise. He certainly is now. And now let's wind up, Joe. We'll stay in or we'll leave. Now we finally do break out of Birmingham. I don't know. I'm getting confused. The Southeast can be a very tricky place to have to travel, and these days it's very wet. But let's move to or stick in Winston-Salem and talk a little bit about Brett Montgomery, the other player along with Noah Schultz, who will be on the roster, if not playing in the Futures game on Saturday in Atlanta. Coming over from the Boston system, never played in their system. He was injured in the College World Series last year, so he made his professional debut with the White Sox. Almost immediately moved from Kannapolis to Winston-Salem, and he's shown he's adept with some clutch hitting. Overall, his game has remained strong. There's a lot of talk about when he's going to be in Birmingham. I'm not sure his performance has warranted that as an automatic, at least not as some sort of cup of coffee or at least post-draft type of thing. What are you seeing from Braden? He certainly merits Futures game. He's got a really nice speed power combination, not a super burner in terms of stolen bases, but he does swipe some. Incredible power stroke, which we saw in his college season, like 27 homers in 50-something games. And he's kept that up fairly well enough. He's had some flame-out games, the 3-4K games like any young hitter is going to go through, but he's also been unmistakably clutch, both in Kannapolis and Winston-Salem, and he seems like a guy in a system almost completely bereft of true outfield prospects to be the guy as an outfield prospect. And I think that's what gets everybody saying, man, is he going to be in Birmingham? Because then, who knows, he could maybe jump to the majors in 2026. And we just want to dream on this guy. But what are you seeing, particularly with maybe what might be perceived as maybe a little bit of a stall out here while we're getting into midseason?
Yeah, he really got off to a hot start this season. And, after dominating in Kannapolis for just about that first month. Also got off to a very good start in Winston-Salem, and he really gained my attention quite a bit with, not that he didn't have it, before, but that hot start in Winston-Salem, it was like, oh my goodness, is he just going to keep running his way up the system throughout the year? Since that, first week or so with the dash, it's been largely an ordinary performance from him. He's done better than most players on the dash, which isn't saying a whole lot. He has been a spark overall. I mean, he's got the OPS in the high 700s. Like, that's good. It's not fantastic. This week has been a cold one for him, but it's 1 week. Overall, that doesn't really change anything for me. June was it was a decent month for him. There was nothing massive. had some great games, like you said, had some burnout sort of games as well. But overall, it netted out. It was decent. And the power, I thought we'd see a little bit more of it from him, but it still hasn't been a huge disappointment from that standpoint. I guess he set the bar very high for himself early on in the season. That first week or so with the dash was really special, but of course hasn't been able to live up to it because nothing of that nature is really sustainable. But I'm curious in terms of if he's kind of able to display that power more consistently, because we know that he has it. It's kind of a matter of how often is he going to be able to show it. But overall, maybe if he struck out a little bit less, that would be nice as well. That's happening a bit more often than I thought it would happen in high A ball. That's another thing I guess to keep my eye on. Other than that though, there's no alarm bells that are ringing from that standpoint. Overall, Braden Montgomery's been a very solid player, and despite kind of stalling out these past few weeks, I definitely think he's a very promising prospect, especially with his glove in the outfield. That certainly increases his margin for error at the plate.
Yeah, not to say the future game honor is not warranted, but Braden certainly benefits from his competition or lack thereof. I mean, who are you going to pick? So he's filled that role pretty admirably. It's great distinction. There's not a lot of no high A players, but there are not a lot of high A players. It's definitely not the plurality of the rosters. So it's quite a distinction in the same way that Noah Schultz, who had either just gotten a Double A by that time or still was a high A pitcher at the time of the Futures game a year ago. That's not nothing. Those are things that do go in the little trophy chest, and good for him. And hopefully he has. He'll get his pinch hit appearance or whatever it'll be. Hopefully he'll show out pretty well. We need continued good news as fans of the White Sox. Joe, I appreciate your not giving into the compulsion to talk Samuel Zavala. We did that last Miners podcast. I'm sure we will next one when we have a bigger group joining us, and you'll be able to teach everyone else beyond just me about the wonders of Samuel. He did win one of the 4 Player of the Week awards, so maybe things are turning around. Again, he benefits from his surroundings, that he still looks okay in a lineup that is the Winston-Salem Dash lineup. True. A team that is sporting a -5 run differential, so not maybe producing. It's not just the pitching staff. Don't pick on just the pitching staff. It's an offense that is incapable. Sort of like, I don't know, it's a major league team that plays under, unable outside of Colorado to generate offense and runs. Joe, well, thanks. Hey, listen, we flew sort of solo on this. Again, I'm going to anticipate that our July look back will be a little more crowded, if not the full 5 group. It will be more than just me and you will be 1 month closer to marriage, and 1 month closer to being able to speak glowingly of Samuel Zavala. So look forward to finding out what you unearth in these weeklies and the July monthly, so we have something else to talk about. And hopefully the arrow will be upturned on Noah Schultz by then, and Hagen Smith, and even Braden Montgomery. He'll put a few balls over the fence, and hopefully we'll just have too much to talk about. Maybe we'll break it into 2 podcasts because we'll have so much great stuff to talk about. I'm waiting for that day. I've done 62 of these, and it's never been a case of like, wow, we're breathlessly just talking about the greatness of the White Sox system. It just don't happen. But hey, there's still time, so let's hope there's a great month of July ahead for the system. Kannapolis, this means you. Winston-Salem, we've sort of given up, but hey, you can still surprise us. And ACL, keep it up. We need a playoff team this year. That'd be fun. Even in sort of a fake weird season in a completely weird league where they have first pitch and it's 108 degrees and they play at 9:30 in the morning or 9:30 at night and there's probably like snakes in the outfield. One day we'll go see it together, Joe. Okay, well, Joe, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for listening, reading, watching, all that stuff. We'll promise we'll be here. We thought, man, it might not have happened this month, but we can't do that to you. You're looking for, you've already earmarked your 6 Sox Pop on the Farm podcast. How can we like cheese out for June's? That wouldn't be cool. And Joe thought the same thing. So we got together and we did this. In a month's time, I don't know, there'll probably be a few more of us. Maybe I won't be here. Maybe there'll be like more smarter things discussed because I won't be here. But Joe, see you in a month. You have no choice. It basically pivots around you. So whenever you're available, it could be like August 15th and we're going to do it. So Joe will be here. I promise to all of you, he'll be here for Sox Pop on the Farm 63. The rest of us, hey, who knows? It could be a solo Joe Resis joint. But thanks, Joe. Let's do it again in a month or so, right?
Yes, my pleasure. I'm looking forward to next month already.
All right. See everybody in a month's time, and keep tuning in on our other podcasts. There's like 8 million of them, and there'll be a mothership at some point, and we got all-star stuff coming up, and hopefully no other players will pass away from the 2005 team. God help us, but we'll be talking specifically minors in a month's time with Joe Resis, maybe me, and some others. Until then, take care.